just hit record and we'll just use the audio. So you'll get to see me if you are live, and you'll only get to hear me if you are watching this later. Hey, everybody. We'll get started in just a second. Figure out how to show you me like I've done in the past. GoToWebinar is not cooperating today. Of course, it could be user error as well. Katie, you can see me now? Yes? How many fingers am I holding up? Okay, thank you. All right, it is the top of the hour. So what a lot of people have been emailing me about, and I thought we might start the conversation with, is how our agency is beginning to prepare to go back to the office. So there's been a lot of chatter about that around the weekend and today, as states are beginning to open up or at least release dates for opening up. And so I thought I would just give you a little bit of the lay of the land of what seems to be the plan. So most agencies that are putting into place a plan to open up, they are going to stagger the open. So not everybody's going to go back at once. Right now, they're thinking about how are they going to reconfigure the office so that everyone has 6 feet around them. So there's social distancing from in between desks. And then they're going to phase people in. So my guess is that most agencies won't be fully restaffed for about a month, that they're going to phase everybody in week or 2 week increments. And then let the people who want to still keep working from home choose to do that for a period of time. Maybe they're the last ones in. Part of that depends on position, whether or not you can afford for them to be out of the office. But that seems to be the conversation right now is how are people getting back? How are people beginning to think about going back into the office? So if anybody has any thoughts about that, I'm happy to share those with everybody, or I will open it up to questions. So as many of you know, the IRS came out with the big notice saying that, hey, if you use PPP funds to pay payroll or rent or utilities, that those expenses will not be deductible. And then over the weekend, Congress came back and said, whoa, that is not helpful at all, and it's not what we meant. So I suspect we'll see some sort of a shootout between the IRS and Congress on that. So keep a close eye on that. I will, of course, keep an eye on it for you, and we'll keep updating you on that as well. I think Congress is going to win, but we'll see. I am interviewing tomorrow a CPA who's going to talk about if the IRS wins, what are some things you can do to mitigate that additional tax burden between now and the end of the year. So, and those will be good tax tips to use whether the PPP expenses are deductible or not. But they'll be particularly helpful if we are held to not be able to deduct those expenses. All right, what questions do you guys have for me? By the way, I think we're at about 100% of AMI agencies have been PPP funded, so I'm relieved about that, as I'm sure all of you are as well. What do you want to chat about? This may be the shortest open mic on the planet if you have no questions for me. Right in the little question box, type your questions. Or, you know, shoot me a text. No, I have not gotten a haircut. Interesting question, but I've been using my beard trimmers to keep my hair off my ears, but otherwise I have not cut my hair yet, but I'm getting pretty close to it. Our agencies that are reopening, screening, temperature taking set upon entry to the office each day. I have not heard of anyone that is doing that. I know that some of the information I sent out to you last week showed you that you're legally allowed to do that. But I have not heard of anyone specifically buying a bunch of thermometers and planning on doing that. What is the liability for agencies if we call back employees and then one gets sick with COVID, assuming they caught it at the office? Well, I think your liability is, as long as you disclose it right away, you're not knowingly putting them at risk. So I think as long as you follow the protocols, and I'll have some more of those protocols to send out to you tonight or tomorrow. As long as you're following those protocols and you are social distancing, if you're choosing to, you're requiring masks. I know some agencies are going to require masks in the office. And you are setting up conference rooms and things like that to have enough space. If somebody were to get sick, then obviously everybody goes back home for 2 weeks. You have to disinfect the office. Everybody has to quarantine. But I don't believe you would have any liability, legal liability, because as long as your state is saying you're open, you're just following the law. Are you seeing agencies making different choices for going back to work based on whether or not employees have kids? And considering the extra work our employees are bearing as schools remain closed? I'm seeing some agencies decide having the kid factor be one of the decisions in how people are going back, like in what order. But many people are saying that they believe there'll be no summer daycare, there'll be no summer camps, there'll be no summer anything. And so, you can't kick that can all the way down to school starting again. So, I think part of this is certainly going to be that employees have a responsibility for figuring out how to take care of their kids. So yes, I'm seeing that in some cases people are letting, and I'll tell you what the difference is. If you have kids at home as an owner, you are probably making different decisions than if you don't. But in general, what I'm seeing is that is one of the factors agencies are considering as they're deciding who goes back when, that they're giving parents with younger children a longer runway to deal with childcare than somebody who, for example, does not have kids. How are agencies planning on phasing back in the office? Are they asking or telling who goes in? I think it's probably a more collaborative thing than that. I think the owner, from what I've seen, and this is very early on, people are just starting to think about this, but from what I'm seeing, agency owners are putting together a suggested list of who's going back when, and then sharing it with the team to see if people want to juggle or have a concern, or maybe some people want to get back to the office earlier. So I have some of you that I have several of you that one of your employees couldn't work from home, just couldn't make it work. So they were the sole person in the office for the last 6 weeks. So obviously that person would be first on the list. So I think it's collaboration, but it starts with the agency owner having, the idea of who they want to go back when and how they're going to manage that. Any thoughts on approaching new business now? I know it's been discussed, but it seems really odd to be pitching new business now. How can we help you during this time? Seems like a good way to reach out, but to people we haven't talked to in a while can seem disingenuous. Any general thoughts? Yeah. I have a lot of agencies landing big pieces of business with new prospects and with people who've been in their pipeline. And I think it starts with starting to put out content and share content with your prospects around sort of this idea of phasing back into the market. And again, as I have said to you guys on multiple occasions, I've given you all kinds of documentation. There's tons of resources on the AMI COVID page, and many of you are taking those resources and retooling them and creating your own ebook, PowerPoint deck, factoid images, whatever it is, that sort of teaches prospects and clients about sort of how it makes sense to go back to the market and what kind of things they should be talking about now and what kind of things they should be planning for in the next couple of weeks. So a lot of you are leading with good content, good educational content that is COVID specific around how to come back into the market after a crisis, during a recession, things like that. And then that's what triggers that conversation is, hey, we're sharing this with our clients and friends of the agency. We used to work with you, or we've talked to you in the past. I know we haven't worked together, but I'd still like to share this with you. Would be happy to hop on a call and discuss. Or, many of you are doing webinars around those same topics, and you're inviting prospects and customers to those webinars. So lots of ways to do it, but I think it starts with helping them understand that you understand how to help them successfully get back into the market without looking like they are tone deaf or they're jerks or whatever, but you know how to do that. So I think that's how it starts. How are agencies handling summer vacation policies? Because you think they can't go on vacation because you're still on lockdown, or because you're afraid everyone is going to want to go at once, Jessica? Because there are two different answers. Oh, you're welcome, Jess. Happy to be helpful. Okay, so Jessica's question was, how are people handling basically vacation time if people can't really use their vacation time because they are stuck at home? So a couple things. Number one, if some of your employees need not to work full time or need more time off because they are juggling parents or kids or whatever it is they're juggling, then some people are encouraging their employees, it's okay to use PTO time to sort of take that extra time that they need for their families. Many agencies, so if you have bought into my philosophy, which is unlimited PTO, this is a non-issue for you, because basically you just tell them, when we get off quarantine or lockdown, I know all of you are going to be anxious to use vacation time. We are going to have to be careful that we plan it out so that everybody's not gone at the same time, so that we can take care of clients. And so we're going to have to work on what the vacation calendar for the rest of 2020 looks like. But with an unlimited PTO, they don't lose anything if they don't use it, so they're not freaked out about it. If you still do a traditional PTO, especially if you don't let them roll over PTO time in their after the end of 2020, many agencies are creating a one-time exception for 2020 where they are allowing their employees to roll over a certain percentage, typically it's 5 days or so, of their unused time at the end of the year so that they don't lose it. So that's sort of how people are doing that. Okay, what else do you want to know? Did you all rest this weekend? Did you all chillax a little bit? Because as I told you, everybody's getting a little cranky. Not with me necessarily, but I can feel your crankiness, and you all need some chill time. Do you have any information on how agencies are doing right now versus 4 weeks ago when you published this information, with some specialties doing better than others? Yeah, so I would say in the last 3 or 4 weeks, for most agencies, most of you experienced the client freak out, hit the pause button or pull the money or whatever in the first few weeks of the lockdown. So I would say from mid-March through probably early April. And then after that, there has been a significant calming down. And so for many of you, there was a significant drop in activity or in spending amongst your entire client base for that first 3 weeks or so. And then after that, things have been pretty steady. And so most of you have not reported, at least to me, that you have had a lot of significant client loss, certainly after the first month, so in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So for most of you, it's stabilized. So you're all still working, you're also taking care of clients. Most of you are out selling again. And most of you, on average, most of you have lost between 10 and 20% of your AGI. There are some of you, particularly those of you that were really deep in media planning and buying, that got hit harder than anybody else, without a doubt. But even the media buying agencies are picking up new clients, yeah, especially on the digital side. And so again, I'm going to guess when we look back on this a year from now, and for those of you that are in the live peer groups where we share financials, my guess is that most of you are going to have sort of a flat year or maybe a little bit of a loss. So I've done several peer groups, the live peer group meetings. We had to do them on Zoom, obviously, but I've done several of those since COVID hit. And one of the things I was asking all of them is, okay, at the end of 2019, going into 2020, what was your projection for 2020? What have you experienced in terms of loss or gains? Because some agencies have gained during this time, during COVID. And what do you predict your year-end 2020 is now, based on what you know today? And most of them are not predicting a significant loss from what their pre-COVID numbers were. We'll see if that holds true. But for many of the agencies, they have really hustled and gotten either existing clients or new clients to do different kinds of work, or they've helped clients pivot dollars from, let's say, a big media buy to a big PR push or something else like that. But for the most part, I would say many of you are in a much more stable place than you were 4 weeks ago. So actually, not necessarily dollars wise, but just in terms of calmness wise, things are much better. We have a number of clients that are slow paying and no paying at this point. Yeah, I think for many agencies, this is going to be the new challenge is cash flow. How are agencies dealing with vendors who are wanting payments even though we have not been paid? You know, for the most part, how agencies are handling that is they are having conversations with those vendors, and they're saying, look, just like always, I mein, this is not a COVID thing. Many of you have had this policy since I've known you, which is when we get paid, you get paid. And so that's really how most agencies are handling it. Now, if you're super cash flush and you have a couple vendors that you really rely on every day to serve clients, then some agencies are paying those folks, but nobody's paying all of their vendors before they get paid. So some of you are cherry picking some people who are really integral to you delivering what you do for clients, and they're taking care of them, but they're not taking care of everybody. So for the most part, they're just saying, look, as you might imagine, we're being slow paid, and so unfortunately, between being slow paid and having clients hit the pause button, I just don't have the cash to pay you. I'm sorry. I acknowledge the bill. We will make good on it. As soon as we get paid, I will pay you. But they're just having a candid conversation about it. All right, what else do you want to know? Or what do you want to share? If any of you have stories, I'm happy to share those as well. Biz dev success stories. Okay, regarding the EIDL, I filled out a simple application 5 weeks ago and received $5,000 in funds. Is there another application I need? Yeah, so there's a lot of confusion about the EIDL, so the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. So many of you have gotten your PPP loan, you're all set on that. So the EIDL has two parts. You fill out the application once, and then what many of you have gotten is you've gotten $1,000 per full-time equivalent as a grant. So that's a gift. You don't have to pay that back. I'll tell you in a minute how it impacts your PPP dollars. Okay, so that's one. But now the EIDL is administered by the Treasury Department and the SBA. So they are 6 weeks easy out from processing your loan. So eventually, a week or so after, maybe 2 weeks after, you get the grant money. And by the way, they just stick that in your bank account because part of the application is you putting in your bank information, your routing number and your bank account. So a couple weeks after, this has been typically what's happened. A couple weeks after you get the grant money in your checking account, you will get an email from the Small Business Administration saying, we got your application and we're processing it. I only have one agency who has actually heard back from EIDL that their loan was approved. And by the way, they decide how much money they're going to give you. You didn't ask for it. You didn't set an amount. They tell you how much money you can have. They send you a link to loan documents. You sign the loan documents and then you get a check. So Melissa, in your case, you're early on enough in the process that you've gotten your grant money, and now in the next week or two, you'll get an email. If things stay on course the way they have been, you'll get an email that says, hey, we're processing your loan, sit tight. And then anywhere from 2 to 3 more weeks, you will either get a note saying, sorry, you didn't get a loan, or yes, we're going to give you a loan. If you want it, click on this link, go sign the documents, and then we'll send you the money. So that's how that's working. Now, how the EIDL grant impacts your PPP is, all right, so let's say, Melissa, you got $100,000 from PPP, and you got $5,000 from EIDL, the grant. When your bank approves the fact that you've used all of the funds properly, so all $1,000 or $100,000 is forgivable, they're going to pull back $5,000 and say, well, $95,000 is forgivable because you got the EIDL loan for $5,000. So now you have $5,000 on the PPP loan that is not forgivable, and you have to pay that back. So that's the way that works. It appears Google is not approving display ads that lead to a landing page referencing COVID-19. Is anyone else running into this, and any thoughts on how to circumvent it? I'm losing digital media as a result of this. Anyone else bumping into this? Other folks? Are the rest of you able to buy ads that, okay. So somebody says, yes, we are. You cannot mention COVID in your ads. So Amy, is it's okay if the word COVID is on the landing page, you just can't mention it in your ad itself? Is that what you're saying? So you'd have to say crisis or something else like that? It can be in the landing page. Okay. So Rob, have you tried that? Have you tried pulling the word COVID out of your ads? Now we're being told. Have you tried it, or is that just what people are telling you? And Amy, I'm assuming that it's working for you, right? They don't have COVID in the ad. So they don't reference anything in the ad that says COVID or C19 or anything like that, Rob? He's saying it's just on the landing page. We're doing promotions, but don't mention it in the ads. We do mention it in the landing page, and it's working fine. Amy says, we've had to rewrite all of our creative search and display to avoid these words. Amy, I'm assuming you're going to tell me what those words are, but in the landing pages, do use that language. Okay, well, it sounds Rob's saying that's what the rep is telling them. It sounds like it is working. Is that like a digital ad rep, or is that somebody at the Google themselves? Yeah, they're saying it can't be in the ad or keyword purchases, a digital ad rep. Rob, I can introduce you to a couple AMI agencies that are, all they do are digital ads, and maybe they can help you. So ping me with an email, and I'll connect you to a couple folks, and maybe they can help you out solve that. Okay. So Bob is saying it is not a grant, it's a loan. Are you talking about the EIDL grant, Bob? Is that what you're saying? It is a grant, but it impacts the forgivability of your PPP loan, right? So the EIDL is two parts. It's a grant and it's a loan. But the grant part, if you get the grant, it does impact the forgivability of your PPP loan. Because what they're saying is you don't get it free in both places. Excuse me. We're finally moving to accept credit cards and are looking for recommendations for processors. Oh, great. Eileen, there's a great processor, much cheap. As you all know, at AMI, all we do is accept credit cards. Nobody writes us checks. And so I was getting crushed with processing fees, and I found a really great partner, and they are inside the marketplace. So I would highly recommend you reach out to them. They were much less expensive than anybody else, and they've been great to work with. They're very customer friendly. So I don't remember their name, honestly, because we switched so long ago and I'm old, but check in the marketplace. Okay, so you can't say COVID, C-19, coronavirus, so you have to concentrate on the product, service, or solution, not the virus. Okay. We're also referencing relevant content, so it's not just an ad, Megan is saying. Okay. Bob, yeah, so the EIDL, there are two parts of it. It's a grant, and then there's the loan. But if you get the EIDL grant, what it does is it impacts how much of your PPP loan is forgivable. So it doesn't take away, it is still a grant, but what it does is it impacts how much of your PPP can be forgiven. So that's I know it's confusing, it's the government, but that's how that works. Google is trying to make sure that when people search for the virus, they find information about the virus, not people trying to sell things. Well, I guess that makes sense. Be nice if they would help you figure out how to do that. But all right, what other questions do you have for me? You guys are drying up early today. I know it's a Monday. What else can I tell you? Either about what other agencies are experiencing, what they're doing. Most of you are at the point now, and in fact, I'm recording a solo cast later today or tonight about sort of what are the next steps for you, and it's really about monitoring what's happening inside your shop very carefully, but also moving forward and starting to pitch and sell and all of that if you haven't been doing that. How is the China Hong Kong agency doing? They're doing well. I haven't talked to her for about a week, but their clients continue to return. They continue to sort of ratchet up their AGI. They had a reoccurrence where they were at the office for a while, and then I think I told all of you this, but when Hong Kong reopened their borders and started letting like kids who were studying abroad come home, they brought the virus back with them. And so they were back on the lockdown for about, I think, 3 weeks. And then they're back at the office now. And I think she would describe it as slow and steady. That, you know, nobody's coming back gangbusters, but that every week things get better and better, and both in terms of their existing clientele and also new client opportunities. Are any agencies sending meals or other gifts to employees at home? Seems like everyone is working harder and without 9-to-5 boundaries, so I'd like to recognize them in an appropriate way. Yeah, so here's some of the things that I've had agencies do. I had one agency whose the employee was a gentleman. His wife owned a bakery, and so they hired her to do baskets. and then they did a front stoop drop at everybody's house. And I think it was cinnamon rolls or something. But anyway, they delivered like fresh baked goods, but they were from someone they knew. Another agency have a cupcake company deliver a half dozen, depending on the family size, I guess, in the house, half dozen or a dozen cupcakes to each person. Many of you have bought Amazon gift cards or, gift e-cards and then sent them to the employee. Some of you have actually bought Amazon gift cards, had them sent to you, or for those of you that are at the grocery store, whatever, you're grabbing them, and then written a handwritten note and snailed mailed them to all the employees. And one agency that is predominantly women buy gift certificates to a spa that's nearby for all the employees, saying basically, as soon as we get, out of the lockdown, want you to pamper yourself, kind of a thing. Some people are buying books and sending them. Several agencies have said, hey, don't plan on making dinner on Tuesday, just watch your doorstep, and they were ordering from local restaurants and having dinner delivered. So yeah, agency owners are doing a lot of those things because I think you're right. They're recognizing that the employees are busting a hump, that they are struggling with a little life-work balance. And obviously it's stressful for them to be working from home. So many agency owners are being grateful for that, which I think I'm all for, as always. What else? Anybody doing anything different for your employees than the things that I just mentioned? I'm going to do a bonus with the non-qualified PPP money to people making less than $100,000. Yeah, that's a great. So for some of you, your loan is more, especially if you also negotiated a rent reduction or other things. You've reduced your expenses enough that all of your PPP funds may not qualify for the forgivable part. So many agency owners are either doing a bonus or an extra 401k deposit, a discretionary bonus into the 401k. So either they're just adding it to their check or they're adding it to their 401k or simple IRA. A lot of people are doing that, which I think is smart and generous. There's no reason for you to pay the loan back if you can get it forgiven. Are people being transparent with their employees about receiving the PPP funds? Meaning, are they saying that they got the funds? Yes. Yes. I don't know anybody who's not being transparent about that. I think a lot of agencies are using it as an explanation of, you know what, we got to get hustling on the biz dev. We got 8 weeks runway here, but we've got to, there's a huge drop off after the PPP funds go away. So we've got to start hustling for work and getting everybody to participate in that. Me, meaning you are not being transparent. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, Nicole, if anything in the payroll department, so bonuses, 401k contributions, all of that, as of right now. Now remember, the SBA was supposed to tell us on 4/26 what the final rules were, and we still do not have them. So as of what we know right now, a bonus or 401k distribution or simple IRA distribution would be forgivable as of the rules today. Okay, so then, Rob, then you are the only person that I know of that's not being transparent about the loan. Now, I don't know that agency owners are telling people how much money they got. I don't know that they're all going into that kind of detail, but for most of you, it would have been hard for them not to see you scrambling around and trying to get the PPP funds and talking about, your CPA or whoever does your book certainly knows what's going on. So my guess is, whether you want them to or not, your employees know, whether you told them or not. I mean, I think we all know that employees chat behind our backs. So again, I don't know that agency owners are saying we got $112,000 in PPP funds, but I think they are mostly saying that they got the funds. In addition to a gift card, I asked each employee to select a charity, and I made a $250 per employee donation to the charity. They valued that much more than $100,000. Okay, $100,000. They probably would have valued that more. They valued that much more than the $100 Amazon gift card. Yeah, that was very generous of you, and I'm sure they did appreciate that. I did let my employees know that I was approved for the PPP funds. They were so relieved and grateful I had applied for them, and also gave me a chance to remind them that it gives us 8 weeks to weather the 8-week breather, as you said, but we need to go hard now. Yeah, I think that's the conversation a lot of people are having with their employees. Okay. Okay. So I have another agency owner, Rob, saying he also is not being transparent about the PPP funds. He told his number 2 and his bookkeeper. I'm curious, for those of you that are not being transparent, what that motivation is. Because, I think as Katie was saying, I think that by talking about the PPP funds and that you went through the effort to do that, your employees are waiting for them, their shoe drop. They're waiting for them to get laid off or furloughed. And so I think it allows them to work in an unfettered way if they know that for the next 6 or 8 weeks, they're going to have their job and they can contribute to getting to keep their job. So I'm curious, Dwayne and Rob, what your thought was about not telling everyone. I would have told everyone, but there's one employee who needs to be liberated back to the workforce, and I'm really just keeping it from him. Okay, what is the code? What does that mean in code? Meaning you need to fire that person? Got it, thank you. I'm not bright. You can't talk in code. You have to be really clear. Little words with me. Yeah, so have you fired him already, or no, you're gonna fire him after the PPP funds dry up? Okay, so I'm assuming, okay. So the reason you're not sharing it is because somebody's gonna lose their job in 8 weeks, regardless of the PPP. Got it, okay. Other thoughts on transparency or biz dev or anything else I can be helpful with? The big thing now is going to be really having a game plan for the next, 8 to 12 weeks. So during PPP funding and then post PPP funding, if you got it, or if you're in the States. I know some of you are out of the States, but that I think that's the key now for survival for all of us, is to have a good plan in place with contingencies built in so that you have decisions in essence made prior to needing to make decisions. That at certain thresholds, certain things happen. So if AGI drops to this, or if cash flow drops to this, you've got contingency plans in place and you are ready to execute on them. You've shared that with your leadership team or your number 2 or however you're structured, because the sharing of it also holds you accountable to do it, because odds are the consequences of these contingency plans aren't awesome. So you're going to try and talk yourself out of it. I've spent a lot of this weekend chatting with a couple agency owners that have some tough decisions to make. PPP funds or not. I mean, they just have some difficult things. And we all do it. We try and talk ourselves out of it. It's the only thing I can equate it to is I have had many pets in my life, and when they start to get sick and I know it's probably time for me to take them to the vet and put them down, then all of a sudden I start seeing how happy they are and how healthy they are. And it's really me trying to keep me from doing what I know I need to do. And that many of you are going to be in that boat as well. And so a contingency plan that you share with someone else who's going to hold you accountable is a good best practice right now. I think it's a good opportunity to show that you are looking forward. We've also talked about the fact that we lag in the market and we would lose revenue, and this pays their salary while we recoup. Absolutely. Yep. Need to hire some new employees. Any approaches beyond Indeed, LinkedIn, or our website? Gosh, I would think that you have a lot of people out in the market right now. There have been so many layoffs. I was talking to somebody an agency in Austin, and they were talking about some of the large agencies there that have let go 30 or 40% of their staff. One of the places that many agencies have had good luck is the Big Shoes Network. So hang on, let me get you the exact URL. Yeah, that's it. It's Big Shoes Network, and it's a job board just for agency people. So Big Shoes Network. It started being just for the Midwest, but I have a lot of people using it on both coasts and the South. And basically, if people are willing to relocate, but now it's become sort of a national thing. So I would try there, Del. Still struggling with bringing employees back to work after a layoff, keeping them employed for 8 weeks, and then having the possibility to let them go again if there's not sufficient work to keep on. Yeah, so I said this, I think, on last week's open mic that was not AMI member specific. I think if you had them on staff and you had not already laid them off, or you'd not already furloughed them, and you have enough work for them to do, even if you think you're going to have to let them go at the end of the PPP funds, that's different. I think that's A, giving them another 8 weeks of full employment. B, if you hustle enough, maybe it's worth keeping them at the end. I think I have a harder time with, you laid someone off, you're going to bring them back just to make your PPP funds forgivable, and then you're going to lay them off again. I struggle with that as well. I would rather have you either at the end of the 8 weeks give some of the PPP money back, or bonus it to the rest of the employees, as somebody else suggested earlier, or just take it as a 1% loan. I think it's a little lousy to say to somebody, I know I laid you off, but I'm going to bring you back, but it's only for 8 weeks, which also gets in the way of them looking for a job. And you're going to get their hopes up. So I would struggle with that as well, Bob. I think that's sort of an ethical decision that you have to make. If you think you would keep them if you could, that's one thing. But many of you are using this, rightly so. Excuse me. Many of you are using COVID as an opportunity to shed some of your B and C players. So if this person or these people were sort of C-level players anyway, and you're not really losing much by losing them, then I think it is kind of lousy to bring them back just to make your loan forgivable. I agree with you. I would struggle with that as well. A lot of people are doing it. I just personally would struggle with it because it just feels like you're taking advantage of them. You're using them, and I think that's kind of yucky. So I agree. Other questions? By the way, one of the things all of you should be doing now is a great time to be looking at your team and sort of grading them. A players, B players, C players, and as you put together your plan moving forward. And if you don't have work for them now, don't wait. It's better for you to just get rid of somebody who's not performing, you don't have work for them to do, despite the PPP funds. But you need to really be assessing your team and thinking about how your agency is going to pivot out of this. So are you going to still serve the same industries? Are you going to still do the same kinds of work? And for many of you, the answer is yes. And do I have the right team, the right people on the team to do the work that we're heading into doing? If not, this is a smart time to reduce your staff. So they're never going to have an easier time of getting unemployment and additional aid so that you have room on your roster to hire the right person as business starts coming back in the door. So don't feel bad about doing that. That's an important thing for us to be doing right now, is really calling through the team and deciding who you want on the team post-COVID. Which, by the way, we should be doing all of the time, but this sort of gives us permission. For many of you, you struggle with this because you're nice people and you're good human beings, and these are people that have served you and your agency. But this is something we should always be assessing. COVID just makes it easier to swallow it. Other questions? about anything. Bringing people back, biz dev, best scotch. All right, I'm gonna give you a couple more minutes to ask a question. Otherwise, I will assume that you are satiated for now. And oh, that is a good one, Bob. I agree. It's a little peaty, but I agree. It is a good one. I would happily drink it. Andrew, I cannot answer the bourbon question. I'm a purist, just scotch. Actually, I just am trying a new scotch that is a Glenfiddich, but it's called Fire and Smoke, and it's pretty good. It's the fine new find for me. Rob, they were asking best bourbon, so I know that's your thing. So what would you call the best bourbon? Like all AMI meetings, we have now gotten to the serious stuff, the liquor. We'll wait for Rob's best bourbon, and then unless you guys have any other questions, we will call it a day. But let's wait for the bourbon answer. And if you have more questions, I'm happy to stick around. So he says, any Weller product if you can find it. So Weller is the distiller, I'm assuming. Oh, like Buffalo Trace. Okay. Yeah. Buffalo Trace is the distiller. Weller Antique 107, Bob says. Okay. Now we're getting into serious stuff here. All right. Any other questions for me? Or the special reserve, apparently. There you go, Andrew. Lots of new bourbons for you to try. You bet. I've got one of these scheduled, as you all know, for next week. That is open for everybody, and then I've got a new AMI one scheduled in a couple weeks. So Megan is saying Bullet bourbon 10-year. Okay. You bet. Happy to be helpful. Take care of yourselves, please. Rest. Get outside, get some fresh air. De-stress, however you do that. You bet, Thane. Good to see you. You bet, Bob. All right, guys, I'm going to call this one a wrap, and we'll see you next week. You bet, Bruce. My pleasure. All right. See you guys later.